Welcome to Mom and Mind, a podcast about maternal mental health from conception, pregnancy, to birth and postpartum. Real stories from moms and family members who've made it from struggling to wellness, and interviews with experts and advocates who work for moms and families to get the help they need. We discuss very real struggles that can sometimes be hard to hear, but these are stories that need to be told so that moms and families can know that healing is possible. This podcast is meant to offer information and awareness and is not a replacement for treatment by a professional or professional training. Thank you for being with us today. Welcome back to Mom and Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Kat. In this episode, we're having a really necessary and great discussion with Graeme Seabrook. She is going to be sharing with us her perspective and her work with helping mothers recover after recovery. I just really love the conversation we have here. We talk about stabilization after the difficulty of the intensity of a perinatal mental health issue kind of passes and what the process looks like afterwards and building resilience. It's a really necessary part of our continued discussions around perinatal mental health that once the kind of crisis is over, there's still stuff to attend to. And Graeme so eloquently puts all of this out there with all of her passion for mothers. So I'm really excited to bring this to you. Graeme is a motherhood life coach whose approach to coaching is based on the belief that you must be a priority in your own life in order to thrive. Following a traumatizing birth experience that left her with PTSD and surviving postpartum depression and anxiety, Graeme began a healing journey as a mother and a woman. That healing journey led her to train as a life coach and to create spaces where mothers can come to be witnessed, nurtured, inspired, and supported so that they can integrate motherhood with personhood and not the other way around. She does this work because she believes we are living in a global culture that treats mothers as if we are inhuman and expect us to be superhuman. Graeme's work is dedicated to helping mothers reclaim their humanity. So without further ado, let's hear from Graeme. Welcome, Graeme. Thanks so much for coming back with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to share with everybody about your current work and really the work and the concept behind the work that you're doing now. It's so important. I mean, we talk here a lot about being in the depths of pain and moving through it. And I really love that you're bringing this other perspective about, what happens after that. So thank you so much for coming on and for sharing with us today. I look forward to sharing this with everybody.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, part of why I'm doing this is that we are starting to have more conversations about what happens when you're in it. And by it, I mean, depression or anxiety or OCD or psychosis or like when you're down at the bottom of the hole, right? We're starting to get traction on that. People are starting to have those conversations. Even like celebrities are starting to have those conversations. Right. It's super exciting. But I know a lot of moms who are 2, 3, 4, 5 years out now.
Right.
Out of the hole, dug themselves out of the hole or had people help them out of the hole. A lot of these moms have turned around to help the mothers behind them. Right?
Totally.
There is so much awesome stuff happening.
Yeah.
And at the same time as they're doing all of that, they'll have one bad day and be terrified for 2 weeks. They're getting really sick again.
Right.
Yeah. Or I know I saw it in myself. What happened to me was every time I got physically ill, a cold, the flu, the worst was when I had pneumonia and ended up in the hospital.
Oh, no.
It was terrible. It was not fun. I don't recommend it. Like, guys, you shouldn't do that. It's not a good way to have a vacation.
No.
But I remember I was admitted the same day that was like my usual therapy appointment. And I just asked my therapist if we could talk on the phone. And she said, sure, because she's wonderful. And I remember telling her, I hate the way this feels. And she said, well, of course you do. You're sick. You have pneumonia. It's not going to feel good.
Right.
And I was like, no. It feels like depression.
Yeah.
Like for me, the fatigue, the body aches, the not feeling like I couldn't get a full breath.
Right.
All of those things felt like what depression had felt like for me because I went through depression. I had a lot of physical symptoms.
Okay. Right. So then the stuff comes up and it kind of triggers or brings up these other feelings from the past.
Oh yeah. And it was 3 years later, I wasn't on medication anymore. I was seeing my therapist every other week. I was outside looking in and even living it on the inside, my day-to-day life. I was really healthy, like taking really good care of myself, mentally taking really good care of myself, and physically not as much because pneumonia. But,
Right.
but this wasn't like, oh, she's still sick kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, this is like years later. And it doesn't, when I started looking around for somebody to talk to about it, I didn't really see anything. Like, we don't really talk about this, about how your life maybe changed for years, decades kind of stuff.
Right. So you're out of the main storm of it all, and potentially just on the outskirts of the storm, or years past where you're having some really good days, weeks, months. And what happens when you don't feel well? Yeah. I mean, that's a big, big, big deal. And just, I resonate with what you were saying, even in my own experience after having gotten out of the depths of everything, having that bad day, having a bad week and feeling like, oh my God, no, this can't happen again. It can't be this again.
Yeah. Even when logically, this is just a bad day. Even when you can connect it to a very specific thing that happened. Like, I am upset because of X, Y, or Z. And you know that it's not just generalized anxiety or depression. That doesn't seem to help. Like, the fear is still there. This fear still pops up. And then also the guilt, I carried that for way too long, way longer than I needed. Now that I've put it down, I realize how heavy it was and how long I was carrying it. And the pressure to be the perfect mother, to somehow make up. You can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes.
Okay. I can feel it.
Somehow, like, make up for what I put my family through.
Yeah.
There's all of this stuff that, like, hits us, I think, afterwards. I wasn't thinking those thoughts when I was really, really sick, when I was really, having panic attacks every day and all of that stuff, I was just trying to live. But as I got better and as I got healthier, that is when everything else set in of like, no, now I have to be the perfect Pinterest mom.
Oh, no.
Because that's the only way to make it worth it.
No.
To make up for these months, almost a year. And that's just ridiculous. That's not true. That's not at all true.
Yeah. Oh man, I know is resonating for so many people as they listen to this, people who've made it through themselves, and, resonating for me as you're talking about it. Kind of all these visuals I have in my mind is like, when the storm passes, there's all this sort of cleanup to do and readjusting and putting things back together. And what does that look like? And how do you do it? And gosh, all of what you were describing, that need for perfection is still there. Or the drive to do it, or to make up, the guilt. Oh gosh. What I also hear is resentment from what happened, and kind of holding on to that resentment for a while. Yeah. Do you see that too?
Like,
yeah.
I mean, that totally makes sense, right? All of these things, make sense. They're all coming from a place where, like, once you really look at it, you're like, oh, well, of course I felt like that. Of course I did. And of course I was angry. There's some really crappy stuff that happened to me. Yes, I have an absolute right to be angry about that. But carrying that anger for years and years and years, and letting that anger sit and fester and turn toxic, there's a difference between me using the pain and the anger from what I went through as a catalyst for advocacy and as a way of giving me energy to tell my story and do this work. That's totally different from letting it turn inward and sit and fester and just like feeding it. And then it becomes, it can eat you up. It really can.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that absolutely happens so often. I guess I don't know how to say this, but the phrase that you've sort of coined with this in terms of how you view the process of recovering from recovery, I just love that. It encapsulates so much of what you're talking about and what people go through.
I totally stole it.
Graeme, you're supposed to just take credit.
No, I can't though, because it's an amazing person that I love. Kate Kripke is an absolutely fabulous, amazing therapist. And yeah, she helped me so much.
Oh, great.
And she said, she was speaking once and she said, your job as survivors now is to recover from your recovery period.
Yeah.
And I was like, my head flew off.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the thing. That's what I haven't done yet, you know? And it was like the sky's parting and the sun coming down and all that cheesy stuff. And that is really what led me on this journey. Like I went back to my therapist and was like, this is what I need to do.
Right.
You have to help me. You have to help me. Like, this is our next step. This is, you know, the work that is left.
Absolutely.
And she steered me towards a lot of information that was mostly on resiliency, believe it or not, like just bouncing back from trauma in general.
Yeah.
And that was like the next rabbit hole that I went down.
Oh gosh. Yeah, you can get really sucked in there.
You really can, yeah.
But there's so much in there about resilience and building yourself back up, but using the strengths that you already have. I mean, I think so many people feel depleted from going through postpartum depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, all the things. You're absolutely depleted. And by the time you get out of the intensity, this like stabilization period, the road to wellness or consistent wellness anyways, more consistent than not, because, you know, we're human and some days are bad. It takes some time. And it's really hard to wait for that, to get to that point where you're like better more days than not.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I remember when it was really bad, all I wanted to know was when it was going to get better. You know, so yeah, the waiting part of when is this going to be over kind of thing. And then as I started getting better, I realized that in one way or another, never going to be over for me. And I don't know that that's true for everyone. I do know, I do have friends who consider themselves 100% fully healed. They're doing great. They have no issues. They have recovered from their recovery. They're done. It's, you know, I don't know that I'm ever going to be there. I think I'm always just, for me in my life, I think I'm always just going to be a little more fragile and a little more vulnerable, and in some other ways, way stronger. But I think there's always going to be these little cracks for me. So my life is now about like, I want to fill in those cracks with something that's flexible enough that allows me to live my life without breaking.
Right. Absolutely. And when there's some like cropping up or resurgence of some kind of symptom, it doesn't feel like you're going to break.
Yes.
Entirely.
Yeah. I can stretch.
Even for me, like I have clients who have intrusive thoughts and really difficult OCD related intrusive thoughts. So will ask me, I'm fairly open about my experience. And they'll ask me like, do you still have intrusive thoughts? And I'm like, yeah, I do. But I know that they come when I'm tired. I know that they come when I'm stressed out. And also when they come, I know that it's not about me. It's about my stress. And that's like when you're talking about recovering from recovery, that's how I am relating to it. And with my own process is like things still happen, but they don't affect you the same way. You manage them in a different way. You cope. Is that kind of part of what you're working?
Okay. So using the intrusive thought example, so that the intrusive thoughts come in, and so that after you've breathed your way through them, after you've dealt with the actual thought in whatever way works for you as an individual, that you're sitting there going, okay, have I slept?
Right.
Have I eaten?
Right.
Where's the stress? Have I been drinking water? What's the trigger? Or if you know that there's a very specific trigger and it's always sleep, or it's always food, it's always, you know, so that instead of going into that, oh God, this is never going to end, I'm going back there, I'm going to lose everything. You know, instead of going into that spiral,
right,
you go into your checklist of, all right, what's going on that I haven't been paying attention to? What do I need to do to pay attention to it? Like, okay, I haven't been sleeping. What do we need to do about that?
Right.
You know, so it still happens, but your experience of it is totally different.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. And I really hope that people can hear that, especially people who are kind of still in the trenches, kind of dealing with the intensity of it, that, you know, I think you said something a little bit earlier that like, when is this going to be over? That there's a process. It doesn't just one day you wake up and you're done. There's a process of healing, just the same way that like if you were to break your leg, it would take you a while to be able to run on it again. The recovering from recovery that you're talking about is all of that kind of fine tuning afterwards. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. And I think I'm really glad that I went down that resiliency rabbit hole of like the 10 million books and TED Talks and all of that.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, I went hard. I went
Yeah.
podcasts and TED Talks, and it's like, it's a mess. And my bookshelf just looks like, it's been really helpful because in almost every one of those things, there was something that I could pull out, right? There was some nugget that I was like, oh, this is why I picked up this book. This is what I needed to learn from this TED Talk. This is what I needed to know from this podcast. So if somebody doesn't get anything else out of our conversation, if that's the nugget that they can pull out of it, right? That this is a process and that they are not wrong or bad for having taken however long it takes them to move through the process. Yeah, I think that's worth it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I really hope people can hear that. So just to kind of encapsulate your view, how do you explain to people the process of recovering from recovery?
It is when you have made peace with your journey into motherhood. For me and for, the people that I work with as a coach, a lot of it is about making peace with what actually happened versus what you wanted to have happened.
Wow, that's important.
Yeah. So there's a grieving process that goes along with that.
Yep. Wow.
I think there's a lot of grief in motherhood in general, and we don't talk about that either. I know that's not even. That's
okay. In our next episode, Graeme will be talking about grief in motherhood.
But just, I mean, there's so much of how we thought it was going to be. Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
And it can be so different from that. And sometimes the difference is better, but it's still different. And I think that's something that we need to create some room for,
Right. So from recovery, you're really allowing all of that to be there and to notice it and work through it.
Yeah. You get yourself back. I mean, this really is about, I look at it as the second stage of healing. That first stage is getting you through the crisis period. And that is hard work, right? So just like you said, sometimes you might need a break after that. You might need some time to reset and just see where you are, get your sea legs back and see where you are, right? And then you may be ready to dive back in again and say, no, I want to be all the way healed. I don't want to have this fear and guilt and shame dogging me all the time. I'm ready to move past that and make my peace and gain a new level of confidence in being a healthy mom. Because for like a lot of us, we became mothers. I mean, my birth was even traumatic. My birth experience was traumatic. So I became a mother in the midst of trauma, then learned how to do all of the mom stuff, learned how to breastfeed in the middle of trauma, learned how to do diapers in the middle of trauma, like everything that I was learning how to do as a mom was while I was also trying to like survive this storm of mental illness that was swirling around me.
Right.
So then, like you said, the storm passes and there's debris everywhere. And it took me a really long time to trust myself that I was healthy, that I was healed, that I was strong and whole.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that. I think that's a massive part of this. I hear so often people who are like, it's difficult to trust feeling well because it's so upsetting when that other shoe drops and you feel like you're going back into it or you are having a kind of a slide back into it. Oh man, it is really hard to trust wellness.
Yeah.
That's such an important point.
But at some point you have to embrace it, right? You can't live the rest of your life terrified of being healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can. I just don't think it's a great idea.
Right.
I guess
Yeah.
technically you could do that, but don't.
But why? Yeah. Why would you do that? Yeah. And then another thing that it sounds like you're doing here that I see a lot of is that when people do get to a point where they feel better, they're kind of like, okay, I'm feeling better. And then they go back to business as usual and stop doing the self-care stuff and then slide back in a bit. Can you speak to that? Is that what you see?
Does that make any sense? When you say it like that, it makes no sense. But we all do it. I did it too.
Yeah.
All the things that I needed to do to get healthy. Then once I started feeling good, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't need to journal anymore. I don't need to go see my therapist. I don't need to take time for myself. I don't need to walk by myself. I don't need to make all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Just logically, it doesn't make any sense. If this is what you need to be healthy, then this is what you need to be healthy, period.
Right. Not just in the crisis, but all the time.
Right. And you may need different things. Like you may not need to see your therapist every day. You may need to see them every week. You may need to see them every other week or once a month. Mm-hmm. You may not need the same medication or the same amount of medication. You may things can change. I'm not saying you should keep doing the exact same thing for the rest of your life. Sure. What needs to happen is that you look at the role that thing played in your life and make sure that something is playing that role. Mm-hmm. So if therapy for you was a way to release your feelings, then you have to have something in your life that allows you to release your feelings.
Right.
I don't care what it is. You can dance. Right. You can go running. You can have a journal. You can have a friends night, where you just get together with your girlfriends and do what, I don't care what it is, but something's got to take up that mantle. Something's got to keep doing that, or else things are going to get bad. And so if medication was balancing hormones, well, then you need to be eating and moving and doing other things that will help you naturally do that. Mm-hmm. Whatever the supports were doing, they were doing it for a reason.
Right.
So we can get really creative about how to fill in those blanks. That's the fun part of being alive. That you get to try new stuff, Right. But something has to do it. Something has to keep taking care of you because you're a human being and you need care.
Right. It's amazing how quickly we forget that. I mean, it seems like so easy to get back into busy lives and taking care of this and that and really forgetting the self-care and then kind of waking up like, oh my gosh, why do I feel so bad?
Yeah. And a lot of that I've actually found working with people is that underlying that is the drive to pay back your family or the drive to prove that you're healthy, right? Mm-hmm. You want to prove that everything's perfect. And so you pick back up, instead of picking up one thing at a time, you pick back up all 25 of the balls and you're juggling them all because you're fine now. You're fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine.
Right. Which makes me wonder, with all the, resiliency work that you looked into, how does that, that doesn't sound, I don't know how else to put it, but it doesn't sound like using resilience is to back up all those balls again.
Nope, doesn't work. You can pick up all the balls again. You're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
You're going to drop balls. Balls are going to break. Things are going to get messed up. Your physical health could suffer. Your mental health could suffer. You can try it. Go ahead. Pick up all the balls again. Right.
Cool. Find out for yourself.
Yeah, it's not going to work. That's not sustainable. And that is not, part of this is this is just not how human beings were meant to live. We're social animals. We're supposed to be doing these things in groups. We're supposed to be doing these things together. You, mama, are not supposed to have 25 balls.
Right.
That you're juggling in the air. Your body can't do that. Your brain can't do that. That is not what we are supposed to be doing. And so a lot of the resiliency stuff is learning how to prioritize, making connections with others so that you can spread out, so that you're juggling 5 balls and somebody else is juggling 2 balls and somebody else is, and learning which balls are important to pick up and when, and that you don't have to have all of them all the time.
Right.
It just takes off so much pressure, really.
It really does. It really does. I love that you're speaking to the drive under this. This is needing to make up and needing to prove. That is so real. Oh my gosh, that's so real. It's those two things cover everybody, I think.
Yeah.
That get sucked back into these unhelpful habits. So in the work that you're doing, you're really working to build the resilience. You're helping them figure out how to thrive. Maybe this is a good point to kind of go into the program that you've developed, the Recovering from Recovery. What is it? How does it work? Yeah, give us the details.
Well, it's a coaching program. It happens online so that, you don't necessarily have to be living near me to take advantage of it. And it takes 12 weeks because this is long-term work.
Yes.
It really is. So every week we focus on a different, what I call the pillars of resiliency. So every week we focus on something a little different. And we do it as a group. So there's no more than 10 people can go through this at a time because I want to have time to focus on each person individually.
Right.
And small groups I think are important. So there's 10 of us that go through this together. And each week we focus on something different. So we focus on self-care in community. So who in your life can help remind you to take care of yourself, can help support you in taking care of yourself? What does your support network look like? Are you letting people in? All that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about fears and flexibility. We talk about having realistic expectations. We talk about communication and how to have really hard conversations. So each week we talk about a different thing. And we all get together online and I'm not a therapist, but it's almost like a group therapy session. It's group coaching. So everybody is talking all together. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is that people build these really amazing friendships. Last year when we did it, there are just truly beautiful friendships that have come out of it from people who would probably never have met, in real life. I'm doing air quotes again. And we do things like, how can you hold on to your sense of humor? Mm-hmm. We spend a whole week, which makes me really happy. It's always my favorite week. We spend a whole week looking for silly things and absurd things and figuring out what our humor style is and how can we integrate humor into our life every single day. So it's not always really hard. Oh, I'm going to come on this call and cry in front of Graeme. That's not what it is, it happens, but that's not, that's usually what it is. And it's for moms who are out of the crisis period. And if you're not sure if you are, then you're probably not.
Right.
Honestly, it's for moms who are out of the crisis period, who have been sitting here and listening to us going, oh my God, that's me. Mm-hmm. Every time we've said something, then you should probably call me.
Right. Call Graeme.
then that's who this is for. It is with everything that I do, this is the program I wish had been around 3 years ago when I needed it. Right.
Right. And I love that all of the work that you do and that, have seen from you is all very much heart-centered and personalized. You're not just some sort of talking head, I'm going to help you feel better about yourself and that you have distance from it or something. You've been through it, you understand it, and you can understand other people's experiences that aren't exactly yours and still support them, which is really important. And I love the passion that you have in the work that you do because it's so real. It's so felt.
Thank you. Yeah, this is why I just can't stop doing it.
Right.
And almost all of it is something that I needed that I didn't find. And so I try and make it so that if somebody else needs it, it's
right. There. It's funny. I'm just realizing this. When I think about the work that you do, I picture you having a massive building and all of these things are sort of in there, housed in there. You have the problem with motherhood. You have the
mom center.
You have the mom center. It's sort of in my mind, this massive building, but what you've done is that it's not a physical location. It's a place where everybody can come right from the comfort of their home.
I really want it to be a physical location.
Oh, I know. That would be amazing.
That is
that's on my list too.
That's my 20 year from now.
Right. Yes.
There is a place.
Yeah.
But I think that's the great thing about the internet. Really, when I was really, really sick, there are two women who saved my life, Kelly and Gail, and I met both of them online. Mm-hmm. I still have not seen Gail face to face beyond a computer screen.
Oh.
She lives in Kentucky. I don't. And she literally, I'm not kidding you, this is not exaggeration or hyperbole. I wouldn't be here without the two of them.
Oh.
So I think the internet is immensely powerful.
Sure.
And we can do all of this work. You know, somebody's listening to us right now who needed to hear something that we said.
Right.
So yeah, I love that everything's living online. I love that we get to all meet together online. I love, because we use Zoom, which is an online video application. We get to see everybody's faces. It's hilarious. And then, you know, there's some random kid running through the background.
Right.
There's temper tantrums happening, and it's, you know, it's wonderful.
It's life.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So can you give me like a little bit of a rundown? You have the Mom Center. You have the problem with motherhood.com, which is where Recovering from Recovery lives.
Yep. You can reach everything from the problem with motherhood. The website where you can, it's the hub website. It's the building, Kat.
It's the building. That is the building.
Yeah.
Your virtual building. Everything lives in there, right? You can find all of this stuff. In terms of the process that you've seen moms go through and what they're able to get to after going through this process with you, what have you seen?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Now you're going to make me cry.
Okay, let's cry.
It's amazing. I've seen moms who described themselves as broken. That there was a piece of them that was broken that would never heal. Right. And then it's 12 weeks later and they are sobbing and saying that they feel powerful and they feel like they are in control. And I'm like, well, now I'm done. I'm just going to go sit down on this couch. And you know, it's because we do it together.
Right. You get to really know them too.
Yeah. It's because we all do this together. And it's really deep work. I mean, we end up laughing ridiculously at least once a week, but it is really deep work. So it's moms come out of it on the other side, having forgiven themselves, having made peace with themselves, having taken back control of their lives, where they are in the driver's seat now of their lives. And it's just beautiful, honestly. Like, it's just, I get off that call every week and I'm like, this is the best job ever. Nobody has a better job than this.
The power of healing is amazing to witness and to be a part of. It's phenomenal. It sounds like you hold really beautiful and powerful space with people. And I think too, because of your style, you're not like, I'm the expert and I'm going to help you. And this is how you're going to, I mean, you really are, you know, you're yourself all the time, which I love, and really meeting people where they are, which is what they need. And it's just, it sounds so powerful.
I tell them all the time, I'm like, look guys, I'm not coming down the mountain with like tablets telling you how to live your life. Like it's not me at all. I am maybe 3 or 4 steps ahead of you on the journey. And so I can say like, hey, there's a boulder right there.
Right.
Like, there's a river right there. You guys like, watch out. There's a river, because I just crossed it.
Right.
Not because I am 5 miles ahead of you, but because like I'm still standing there soaking wet going, you guys, there's a river. That's, you know, we're all in this together.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you, Graeme, for sharing with us. And what I'm going to do is in the show notes for sure put the Recovering from Recovery link. It's on the Problem with Motherhood website so people can find that. And when is this launching? When can people join this?
Our enrollment begins August 1st.
Okay, great.
So you can hop on the wait list. You know, you can go right to the website, you can hop on the wait list, and the wait list is going to be able to enroll first, and there's only 10 spots. So,
oh boy. All right.
You should probably grab that. Like, just grab the wait list. Just do that.
Because I mean, every episode here gets thousands of listeners. So I think it's wise to, if this is for you, to jump on that. And also, I'm assuming that if and when this program happens again, that will be listed.
Yeah, it's going to happen every year, at least once a year. I would love to, once I get a little more settled and get my kids both in school full time, I would love to run it twice a year. So it's not going anywhere. It's not thing. It's not going anywhere.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Well, even if for those of you who want to jump on this, please go grab that. If you can't right now, I really hope and I'm sure that some of the things that Graeme has talked about has resonated for everyone. And certainly there are many ways of recovering. But if you can hop on this with Graeme, do that.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad to have you here. And thank you so much for your time and your passion.
Oh, yay. Okay. I'm not going to cry.
You can cry.
Not going to cry.
Thanks, Graeme.
Thank you.
I really hope this idea resonates for you all. It is so important, and it is a big, big piece of continued recovery. And I just love how Graeme put this all together, her perspective on things, her passion to help moms, and also just, us really needing to extend the conversation past this really the most intense part of recovery and into our lives. How do we continue the self-care? How do we continue to keep ourselves centered while we raise people? So if you'd like to connect with Graeme and look into the Recovering from Recovery program, go to theproblemwithmotherhood.com, look for Recovering from Recovery. You can also find Graeme on Facebook, Graeme Seabrook, Twitter at Postpartum Mama, or Instagram at Graeme the PPM. As usual, please connect with us on the Mom and Mind podcast. Go to our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or you can connect with us in our Mom and Mind Connection Facebook group, where we continue to engage in conversation about perinatal mental health and wellness. Thank you so much for being with us. Please share this podcast with anyone who could benefit from it. We've got to spread the word and get mamas the help that they need. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time. By joining us today, you are part of the growing community of people who are aware and concerned for mothers and families during this beautiful and sometimes very difficult time of life. If you or someone you know is having a hard time, help is available. You can feel better. Please look for resources for help at momandmind.com. Together, we can support moms and families so that no one has to deal with this alone. Thank you for listening and being a part of the Mom and Mind community.